Hello and welcome to this webinar about 3 ways to start a business in China. It's brought to you by FDI China, HR1, and our global partner, NN Road. I'm your host for today. My name is Maisie. I'm based in London, UK, and as you can see, it's dark already here if you're not in the UK. Um, I have been working with companies to help them set up their businesses in London for many years now. And it was kind of through these connections that I came across HR1 and FDI China. So I'm really glad to be able to work with them along with NN Road to help companies take their businesses pretty much globally. So it's something that I feel really passionate about. I was an entrepreneur myself before COVID hit as well. I had a thriving tourism business, which ended when the pandemic happened. So, yeah, it's something I feel passionate about helping people with their businesses. So, I hope that the webinar that we have today will be useful for you, and that if you're thinking of entering China and you're not sure about how to go about it, hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have a few ideas about what you can try and do. So, first of all, maybe it's worth just talking about the current situation in China at the moment. So, in China, you can find there's a very, very skilled workforce readily available. So, the skills that they have are very varied. But the thing is that they're very highly trained and very professional to suit a huge variety of client needs. The other thing to take note of now in China is that whereas previously, if you wanted to outsource roles which required a good level of English, maybe China used to be overlooked in favor of places like India and places like that. But actually, there is a very good base of English, especially within different industries. There'll be some maybe who don't speak English, but you can always find some who can. So the language barrier really isn't one that exists anymore now compared to how it used to be in years gone by. Also, throughout COVID, it was quite difficult to get work permits and things. If, for example, you wanted to establish a business and travel yourself in person to China to run it. But now things have got slightly easier and work permits are possible to be obtained. So it means that whether you're looking to hire someone in China already or whether you're trying to go yourself, there should be options for you, which is something that maybe a year or so ago actually wasn't the case. Um, Obviously, China is also very famous for its very strong manufacturing industry. I'm sure we all have plenty of products at work and at home that are all from China. So manufacturing has been strong for many years and is continuing to be strong now as well. So if you're looking for something to collaborate with some kind of producers in China, or even if you're looking to go into that kind of heavy industry yourself or some form of manufacturing, then there's still plenty of opportunities out there to be had. And finally, the tech sector in China is really booming at the moment. So oftentimes we might think of Silicon Valley in the US as the place to go for the best tech talent. And for sure, there's plenty to be found there. But in China, you actually do have some of the world's biggest tech companies now, things like Alibaba, Tencent, companies like this. And because of their existence, many people have trained in those fields because they're trying to get into those kinds of companies. So actually, there's a very widely available talent pool in the tech industry, which is great for people who are looking to expand in that way into China. So our first method, we did say there was 3 ways to expand your business into China. Our first one that we're going to talk about today is called EOR. The abbreviation stands for Employer of Record. Now, basically, this means that you have a local third-party provider who you outsource the employment relationship for the employee to. So this provider will look after maintaining the labor contracts with the employee, running their payroll, releasing their salary, and making sure all the taxes and social contributions that they need to pay are all looked after and done in a legal and compliant way. Um, but that said, you would still be very much in charge of managing your employee in the way that you want and in assigning them their work tasks. So, from the employee's point of view, they very much work for you and they do everything that you tell them to do. And we just help them in terms of managing their salary and such like. So, it's a very good kind of triangular relationship. And it also gives the employees the peace of mind because they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable in all cases with having a setup where they wouldn't necessarily get their pension fund paid into or their housing fund paid into or different kinds of other kind of like benefits and such like that. But with this, all of those are protected and you get the access to an employee or employees in the Chinese region. Finally, as briefly touched on, having a third-party provider who's based locally to provide this service is really good because it guarantees you the compliance that you need to make sure that the practices that need to be followed locally are being followed locally. So how has this been growing over the years? Well, remote working is something that's become increasingly popular. It was obviously driven a lot by COVID and how we couldn't physically go to the office to work, and a lot of people realized actually they could do their job from home. But similarly, that also means that if we can do our job from anywhere, and maybe become digital nomads, as is quite popular these days, if we can do our job from anywhere, then by the same token, you should be able to employ anyone for this job anywhere. And so, really, having these remote working opportunities means that maybe you might want somebody to be hired in China, or it could be, France, Spain, Belgium, wherever it is, but you don't have an entity there. So, EOR allows you to do that. The other sort of trends that we're seeing is that companies are collaborating more within their own companies and with their teams globally. Like globalization really is another big trend that we're seeing. So it might be necessary to have a team of, for example, salespeople in China to run that side of the operation for you. And it might be something that you can't do very easily from your base country. So globalization is a big driving factor in why EOR is getting more and more popular. And to be fair, EOR is something that maybe 5-10 years ago, a lot of people hadn't really heard of, whereas now it's actually becoming quite a commonplace HR phenomenon. Um, so there's certain kind of roles that are very applicable for it. So, for example, as mentioned, maybe sales, it could be a customer service team based in China. For example, you might be able to sell your products or services already, but you might just need that extra bit of customer support. And having a team there would be really good. Or it could be, and this is one that we see very, very regularly, it could be that you have a producer, maybe a factory that you work with, and you've already gone through a very stringent process to choose your partners who will be providing your products, but you just want an extra level of your own, effectively in-house quality control, that you can send someone to the factory and make sure that at that last stage of just checking the product, that you've got everything exactly how you want it to be to your specifications. So for that, you don't really need a whole company in China and all the resources that you would have to put into it to run a company. But with EOR, you can have your own quality control person there, and that'd be a very simple way to run things. Finally, it gives you access to talent that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have access to. So using Silicon Valley as an example, maybe a lot of people thought, oh, if I want somebody who's very strong in this kind of tech field, I need to be finding people in America. But maybe their company is based somewhere else, and in which case, then EOR can facilitate that. So in China, it's the same. It's a huge nation. There are so many people and there's so many talented people. EOR gives you access to be able to use those individuals within your organization wherever the fit is perfect for you. So why choose EOR? Well, it's simple, it's quick, and it's easy to set up. So for example, in China, obviously this does depend on how fast everyone responds to their emails, but it is possible that if you have a candidate that you've decided we're going to use this person, we want to sign a contract and have them onboarded, it could be as soon as maybe a week or 2 weeks to get this staff from confirming that you want them to actually being part of your company. And then the labor law in China is that for you to serve notice on your employee, you would only need to serve 1 month of notice. So it's very easy to wind down this as a setup as well. So if you decide that you don't need your team any longer, 1 month later, you can be out of the Chinese market and there's no further commitment. So it's very, very, very easy and very flexible, whilst at the same time being fully compliant. So another thing that EOR is good for is that because you're using a local team that are already familiar with all of the HR structures and laws in that region, it saves you time and resources having to try and go out and research. Like, I'm sure as many of you must be familiar with, when you're starting out with something in a company, you have to do so much, due diligence and background checks and research just how to do things. But at least with EOR, it takes the kind of whole HR side of things out of what you need to spend time on. And all you need to do is just pass on a few details and off you go. So it's very, very, very practical in that sense. And therefore, it will reduce the workload for your core HR department. It would just be a simple case of providing certain details each month so that the payroll can be run, and then that's it. So really, really simple and very easy. Also, EOR is really good because as it's simple to start EOR and it's quick to wind down, it means that you can really test things and do it without an extreme level of commitment. So it might be that you want to try selling your product in China. It's a new market for you. You're not sure how it's going to go. And so if you have a sales team there, you can try and see, is this going to work? And then based on their results, you can then decide how your company wants to progress with this further down the line. Because obviously, if you establish a company, there's more commitment that comes with that, with permanent establishment and everything else. So this is a really easy way to get that done. If you did try it out like this and then decide to register an entity later, the employees can be transferred to your entity, and that wouldn't be a complicated process either. And the last point, as I work from England, it's very common to hire contractors for certain parts of work. And in England, that's really not a problem. But that isn't necessarily the same globally. And China, there's a lot of sensitivities around a foreign company employing a Chinese contractor. So it's quite complicated to do and not necessarily legal. So it would represent a high amount of risk for you as a company and the employee as an individual. So giving the EOR option means that they can be a formal employee without you having to have the company to employ them directly yourselves. And for them, they're happy too, because all of their social funds and taxes and things are being paid. So they can live basically a normal life as an employee always would do. So yeah, so that's why to choose EOR. That's our first method of entering China for business. If you just need a few people there to get things going, EOR is the best way. Now, the second method is if you want to register a company. So for this, it might be that you want to do import and export trading. Well, if you wanted to do that, there are specific licenses that your business must have to be able to do this. And those licenses will only be able to be issued if you have a business for that. So it really depends on your business activities. In some cases, EOR you can definitely choose. In other cases, you actually don't have that as an option. So in which case, company registration would be the way to go. Also, it's for businesses that look to make a profit in China. So if you are looking to actually run a business that's going to earn your company money, and function as such, then a company being registered is also very important for you. And with that, you have the chance of scaling up your business in China. So if you're there and you want like maybe wider coverage or various reasons, but it just gives you the chance to scale up more, because EOR, although it is a low cost, simple, easy way to enter the market, there's kind of a tipping point that you'll reach where the cost of employing people, like outsourcing the employment, may actually exceed if you were to have your own company registered. Although, of course, that would be a very big team for that to be the case. But in any case, it is a possibility. And then finally, if you plan to stay in China for the long term, if you're planning to be there for several years, then having that company registered is a very stable way to do that. So I guess the next question is, what are the different types of companies that you can have in China? What are the types of entities? Well, really, there's three, although one can kind of be split into two categories. So the first is a representative office, an RO. These are usually for non-profit activities. In recent times, it's got more complicated to apply for, and there's only very small amount of use cases where this would actually be the best type to go for. So it exists as an entity type, but chances are it probably won't be what your company needs. The one that we see most requirement for is the WFE, the wholly owned foreign enterprise. Now, this is basically a setup whereby the company is 100% owned by a foreign investor, be it an individual or a company. And then the two kind of subcategories we have trading, which is for the import and export kind of business, and then consulting, which is more for like services and things like that, kind of a lot of the other stuff that isn't included with, import, export, trading and the like. So those are the two most common ones that we would deal with. And if you're thinking of registering a company, chances are that was going to be one of the ones that is what you would be looking for. Finally, in certain cases, some people want to partner with a local Chinese company, and in which case that's a joint venture setup. So you would make a profit and share the profits, and that would all be agreed between you and the partner company that you find in China. So how does an entity get made? Well, it's a process that can take, according to our diagram here, it can take as short as maybe even just 1 month, but it really does depend on how fast everyone replies to their emails. So the first step is renting an office space. So it's important to get a registered address. Now, the address could be virtual, it could be physical, it could even be a factory, but the address is the first step that you would need to go for. Then with that, you can apply for your company name to be registered, and then you can take those details and officially register your company online. Once the government departments have processed this, you'll be issued with your business license. And once you have that, you can then get the company chops for your company and open a bank account for your company. The good news is you don't have to be physically in China to open a bank account there. We'll come on a little bit more on that later. And then you can register for your VAT. And if your company needs any licenses for what it does, then that's when you register for those too. So there's a very long list of licenses that could possibly be required for a vast range of business activities in China. So for that one, it's really important to get good advice from professionals in the field so that you know that you are being advised correctly, that you wouldn't be operating without a license when you needed one. And once you have all of that in place, your business is ready to go and you can start your operations in China. So, that is our second method, registering a company. Now, our third method is a kind of fusion of the two. And how does that fusion work? Well, you start with EOR for maybe one person, a few people. Start with your startup team or a team to just test how things are going. But then as things go well, you might think, actually, we want to go bigger, we want to stay here for longer, or for whatever reason, you want to register a company. So you can do that. The next step is company registration. And once that company has been registered, the employees can be transferred to your new entity and they will be directly employed by yourselves. Now, at this stage, you can operate your company completely by yourselves, and that's absolutely fine. However, we would highly recommend that when you're at least getting up and going, you consider outsourcing maybe your payroll, your tax, and accounting to people who really know what they're doing with that, because it just saves you the time, the stress, and you know that you're being fully compliant. So that's a recommendation. It's not compulsory, but it's definitely worth thinking about, because whatever country we're in, I think taxation and accounting can be a bit of a minefield, can't they? So you may have been in China for quite some time and things might have been going well, but then your plans might change, or it may not be as successful as you hoped it would be. In which case, you might think, actually, this is now time to scale down our operation in China. And you might decide that you want to deregister your company. If that's the case, that might be the end of the line for your business. You might just take everything out and leave no staff there. Or you might decide, actually, we still would like to keep a few core staff. It might be those lovely salespeople, or it might be your customer service team again. But either way, you might still choose to retain a few people. And in which case, you can just go back to EOR for them. So you can continue to employ them, but just not via your own entity. So this is a fusion model that really has many permutations, but it is flexible and it is very practical to fit the needs of your company at any given time during your sort of business life cycle in China. So how do we come into it? Well, HR1 and FDI China, we're sister companies, part of the same group, but we have separate specialities, but we sit within the same office space and there's a fantastic synergy between our teams. So the HR1 services, as the name says, is mainly focused on HR. So we do employer of record services, and we've been in this industry for over 17 years now. We've worked with over 1,000 different client companies, and we have a lot of experience in this field. So employer of record is something that if you choose to use us for, you can really be sure you'll be very well looked after. Because also, actually, from within our team, we have although we've been operating for over 17 years, a significant proportion of our team have actually been there for more than half of the time. So you'll really have a vast experience to draw on. Recruitment is another one of our services. Now, it is possible to find people via LinkedIn and things like that, but if you want the guarantee that you're finding local people with the right skill set and they're asking for the right salary, then using our recruitment service could be a very good way to go. We specialize in headhunting because we feel that it's very important that you can find staff who have their skills are like at their sharpest. So you're not finding someone who's maybe been out of the industry for a while. They're in a similar company to what you're trying to do, and will tempt them away with a fantastic offer that I'm sure they won't refuse. So our recruiters really have a fantastic reputation within the industry, and they're very, very good at their job. So as long as there's the talent in China, we can definitely find it for you. Other than that, we also do payroll outsourcing. So this is the bit where if you make your own entity and but you just want somebody to look after payroll for you, we can absolutely do that, and that would be no problem. We also offer HR advice. So obviously we have several legal experts that are in part of a core part of our team for what we do, and we can do consultancy for any kind of HR related issues that you have, or just questions that you want to make sure of what you're doing in China. We'll be happy to give you that kind of support. If you choose to register an entity in China, then you would be legally required to have your own HR documents, being obviously the labor contract, but also an employee handbook. Now, we have templates that are ready made that you can purchase from us, and then you can customize for your own company. Or if you want a fully customized version that you can use, we can also do that for you as well. Finally, we also at HR1 we do China visa management, so we can apply for the work permits and whatever the type of visa that you need to be working in China. We can do that for you. It just helps to have a team of people that are very experienced at it. They know exactly what you need, and they will be very clear with your deadlines and when you need to submit things. And we offer an ongoing management service, so it's not just like you get your first visa and that's it. Now you need to worry about it yourself from here on in. We would make sure that you always know when it needs to be reviewed, when it needs to be renewed, and what documentation needs to be provided. It does come with one caveat that we are not the Chinese government, and therefore we can't guarantee that your visa will be approved, but we can guarantee that we will do our absolute best to make sure that your chances of success are as high as they could possibly be. So that's HR1. Now, where does FDI China come into it? Well, as the name suggests, FDI China is more focused on the company registration side of things, but we don't just register companies. We offer all the peripheral services that you might need to run your company in China. So, for example, we offer corporate tax and accounting services. We offer the license applications. So, as mentioned, you may not be able to operate without a license, but we can make sure that we get that in place for you. We can also open your bank account for you. And as I said before, you don't need to be in China for this. Also, in China, there are certain regions that are designated as free trade zones. So there's certain tax benefits for operating in those areas. We can register companies in those areas and also in the non-free trade zone areas as well. But we have coverage of the whole region of China. We can also offer a service to coordinate the registration of your address for your company in China, be that virtual or physical, or even if it's some kind of manufacturing facility that you need. So why choose us over other providers? Well, we're fully licensed by FESCO and we're 100% privately owned. That's something that you would actually be struggle to find a similar kind of CV, if you like, for the company, because many of our competitors are actually part state owned. So we're 100% privately owned. Obviously, we're 100% compliant, but a lot of our clients choose us because they like that kind of independence that being privately owned can afford us. We offer coverage of the whole region of China with just one contact point. So you would have just one account manager. And if you had a team that was spread all throughout China, like for example, you have people in Shanghai, people in Shenzhen, maybe Beijing, or even some smaller cities, we can manage that with one contact window. And you would be issued with one invoice for your entire team. So it's just one very simple process each month. As I mentioned before, we have over 17 years of experience. So our operation is something that is very mature, and it's something that we really have got very fine-tuned to exactly what is necessary, and a great form of customer service as well. To prove our experience and our customer service really pays off, we have less than 0.2% of our clients who have ever had HR related lawsuits. And the good news is, of that tiny percentage of our clients that actually have had those lawsuits, all of them have won their cases. So you can see, if you're worried about compliance and the legal side of things, we really, really are a safe choice for you and your company. Also, because we have HR1 and FDI China as sister companies sat alongside each other, if you did choose to use the third method of starting with EOR, then registering a company, and potentially even deregistering and go back to EOR, we can manage all of that between our teams, and you'll find that it will probably be the smoothest transition you could possibly find in the whole of China for those services. So we like to pride ourselves on simplicity, and I'm sure you've got that message loud and clear throughout this webinar. Finally, we also have a bilingual team. Actually, not quite finally. Our team are bilingual, so we speak English and Chinese. We do have some other language speakers buried within our teams, but those are our two main ones. And that's really important because we want to be able to obviously communicate very effectively with you as our potential clients, but also we do need to communicate with your staff in China. So having a team that are fluent in both languages means that there will be no problems along the way as far as communication is concerned. And then, really finally, our badge of honor that we wear with a lot of pride is that we've been rated by Clutch as a top B2B company in China last year. So that's something that isn't easy to earn, and it's something that we are very proud that we can say that we do have. So that's an overview. It's been a bit of a quick one, and a very kind of overview, a very wide overview of the situation, but you may have questions about this, or you may think, actually, I want you to do something for me, in which case, these are my contact details. Feel free to take them down, screenshot them, record them in any way you feel most comfortable with. But if you have any questions about this, or if you have a project in mind that you would like assistance with, then please do feel free to get in touch. I'm based in London, UK. Most of the rest of my team are all based in mainland China. And so we will do our best to support you in any way we can. But other than that, all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for your time today. And I hope your business goes well for you this week. And I look forward to hearing from you at some point. So thank you very much, and goodbye.